We're on the same. When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. About the past and about the future.
Welcome back to Draft Bias. We are legally tampering. Legally tampering. Yeah, that's right. Day 2 of legally tampering. Legally, not illegally. Although I'm sure some of these teams have been illegally tampering. That's right. It's free agency in the NFL. The precursor to free agency. The Christmas Eve. But the Christmas Eve where you get to open up your presents. Like the fun kind of Christmas Eve. Not those Christmas Eves where you have to hang out and there's no TV and like everybody's like 120. Like the age difference is all over the place and there's 6 of you and you all have to sit around and you're reading stories about, I don't know, you're watching the same claymation Christmas movies. Like sometimes that's nice and wholesome and sometimes y'all just want to drink eggnog and open up some gifts. Well, folks, this is some time to open up some gifts, right? We are now into day 2 of legal tampering. And there's been a little bit more movement on the market. Not as much as yesterday. Of course not. Why would there be? Yesterday had some cuckoo bananas movement. This is just like moderate movement, which is still more than what we've had in months. Everybody, it's the third day of Christmas, second day of Christmas. Third day is actual Christmas. That's right. We get the full confirmation. Which of these deals are going forward truly? Which of these deals sounded too good to be true and maybe were? That all the deals will be official come Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Keep that on your desk. Anyway, so let's go right off the top. The Bears, right? Why are we talking about the Bears, Walter? Well, because they signed a quarterback. Unfortunately, his name is Andy Dalton. Once we figured out that Cam Newton was going back to the Patriots and our boy Fitzpatrick decided, you know what, I'm going to go and hang out with the Washington football team, and I'm going to go ahead and try to get to a playoff. Well, he could have did this the same way. He could have went to the Bears. He went to the Washington football team, maybe the better move. And now Andy Dalton goes to join Nick Foles in a kind of awkwardly crowded quarterback room with Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. This feels like a team where everything's going to be on a rebuild next year. They cut both of their tackles. Both of them? Or maybe they kept Leno. I'm not quite sure. They might have only cut one tackle. They cut Bobby Massey. We know that for sure. I think they still have Charles Leno on the roster, actually. But they signed Germain, right, to be their right tackle, 1 year, $5 million, which I think was essentially what they saved by getting rid of Leno. So maybe they just felt like he was better than Leno. Maybe he happens to be the Dave Letterman of right tackles. Who knows? Also, there's a rumor out there that Anthony Miller might be available. That's right, the wide receiver, former, I think he was a second-round pick. This is supposedly so they can clear a little bit more cap space because apparently, they would get about $1.2 million more cap space if they cut or trade Anthony Miller. Dang, man, like how the mighty have fallen. I like Anthony Miller a lot. He's actually a very good player when he's been on the field. The problem's been health. They did tag Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson now gets Andy Dalton to throw to him. Andy Dalton now gets a basically pseudo form of A.J. Green to throw to. Assuming that, it's him starting in the fall and they somehow get rid of Nick Foles, that's a possibility. Nick Foles has not been that great in Chicago. I would probably prefer Andy Dalton over Nick Foles. Actually, I'm probably leaning towards I would. The problem is Nick Foles' contract is a little bloated, to say the least. Maybe they come up with a deal and trade him somewhere that is palatable to both teams. There's been rumors out there that maybe Denver would be interested in him being the backup to push Drew Lock. Boy, howdy, do I feel bad for Denver if that's the case. But let's move on, right? Dalton to the Bears, and Effetti is back. The Giants had a couple of big deals. Well, one big deal and then one tiny deal. But one big tiny deal, right? They extend Leonard Williams, so now they get a little bit of cap space by extending Leonard Williams. Apparently, they've been very much in on the wide receiver market. They just have only gotten one wide receiver so far. His name is John Ross. Yes, the guy who holds the record for the fastest 40 at the Combine, 4.22 speed. Here we go. 1 year, $2.5 million. I think $1 million of that is guaranteed. I actually like that deal for the Giants a lot. That guy's electric. I wanted him on some other teams, but you know what? You always get what you want. I like the signings. One of those things where I go, you know what, Gettleman, you're not always bad. You sometimes come up with some good moves here. But yeah, so they lose Dalvin Tomlinson. They managed to keep Leonard Williams. They extend Leonard Williams' 3-year deal. They clear out a little bit of cap space, and then they sign John Ross. We will see what else they get to do. And I think I don't know if I mentioned that they did rework Nate Solder's deal, so he will be back, and he will be playing for them. I don't know if he's playing right tackle or left tackle. They're keeping Andrew Thomas at left tackle. I would keep Andrew Thomas at left tackle. Nate Solder's temporary, but they did rework his contract to make him more palatable. They did release Kevin Zeitler pre-free agency. That's why the Ravens got him. I haven't really talked about the Giants that much, other than I think a little bit. I don't know if I talked about them much at all yesterday. The Jaguars, right? Let's talk about the Jaguars, right? Might have been a little snarky about some of their signings, mostly guys who looked like they were on special teams. Well, today they made moves. They signed Shaquille Griffin, corner from the Seattle Seahawks. They signed him to a 3-year deal. They signed Tyson Alualu. And actually, Shaquille Griffin currently, I think, is the guy who got the highest paid contract for a corner right now. We'll talk about another cornerback later. Tyson Alualu of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's been really good. If you've heard me on other shows or on this show, maybe I've preached about him. Maybe somebody should go get him because it would be a steal from another team. You know, stealing from the Steelers is good, but not only that, he comes at a cheap price. This is a 2-year, $6 million deal. It's probably the moment I went, oh, actually, I think the Jaguars might know what they're doing. They also traded for Malcolm Brown from the Saints, a guy who I thought was released. They made it sound like he was getting released. This is what the Saints were doing. They were kind of like, we're releasing this guy. And then for an undisclosed draft pick, they traded him to the Jaguars. Marvin Jones, they signed Marvin Jones to a 2-year deal. A very good 2-year deal. Much lower than what I was expecting. And I think he's $9 million guaranteed for the 2 years. So really, if they want to cut him after this year, they don't think it works out. It's fine, but you get a veteran receiver in that receiving core who I actually think has very good downfield ability, good contested catch range. I think this was a smart move signing Marvin Jones. And they also signed Jihad Ward, formerly of the Ravens. He's going to join his defensive line coach down in Jacksonville, the new D coordinator there. The Bills signed Manny Sanders. Yes, Emmanuel Sanders. His release became official. He went up to Buffalo, signed a 1-year, $6 million deal, or up to $6 million deal. Some of these numbers are all over the place. But I think that's a good move. They got rid of John Brown, who's the speed guy, so they go ahead and go for a guy who's a route runner who can get open differently. I do feel a little weird with that receiving core. It's a lot of guy. It's not a whole lot of speed anymore after losing John Brown, but Manny Sanders is quick. Cole Beasley's quick, and Stephon Diggs is good. So that's all we needed. They saved a little bit of money by switching from John Brown to Manny Sanders. And Manny Sanders has been actually relatively good at staying healthy, even though he tore his Achilles a couple years ago. He rehabbed from that and bounced back in like 8 months. Crazy dude. Brown signed Tack McKinley, formerly of the Falcons and the Raiders. They had put 3 claims in on this guy last year, and they finally got him now in free agency. They clearly wanted Tack McKinley. I think Tack McKinley wanted them. He could have re-signed with the Raiders. He said, nah, I'm signing with the Browns. I get to play opposite Myles Garrett. This team looks like they know what they're doing. He signs a 1-year, $4 million deal. He may be able to get up to $6 million with some kind of incentives. Good deal for the Browns. I like it. Yeah, they didn't want to overspend on defensive end. They might look at some other edge rushers in the free agency class and in the draft. The Ravens re-signed Tyus Bowser to a 4-year deal worth up to $22 million. He was kind of the guys leaving, the guy who kind of had I think the most versatility, had actually been very good for them. They re-signed Derek Wolfe, formerly, again, he was on there this year, but he was formerly of the Denver Broncos. They keep him on a little bit more, and they keep that interior 3, the trio of Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe, and Brandon Williams. The Patriots did not end their free agency spree, everybody. They did not. They signed Hunter Henry to be their other tight end. This is actually kind of now starting to make sense. We're starting to see what the plan is from the Patriots. They're going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets, create some mismatches, dictate the coverages in 12 personnel. they got Nelson Aguilar to be the outside speed guy. They got Kendrick Bourne to maybe be the split end to try to he's going to go ahead and get off the line of scrimmage. He'll probably scheme open a little bit of Nelson Aguilar. Maybe they attack some more speed in free agency. I know that there's still a lot of free agent wide receivers available. So maybe they look for another receiver, maybe one with some speed. Maybe they look in the draft. There's a lot of speedy guys in the draft. Depending on how they go. Although it's now looking, the way they're building this team, that they have an idea of maybe if they want to draft a guy, maybe they'll trade up, maybe go ahead and get a Trey Lance or a Justin Fields, something I've been saying for a bit. I think a lot of people have been saying it too. It's not just me. I think this is actually very much the plan from a little bit ago. They're going to go ahead. I think they'll maybe trade next year's first-round pick, get up into the top 10, and maybe get a Justin Fields, a Trey Lance, or worst case scenario, a Mac Jones. Titans had an interesting day. Titans keep on doing weird moves that I don't necessarily agree with, and they'll probably kick me in the booty later on. But yeah, so they cut Dennis Kelly, who's played pretty well for them as like a swing tackle, right tackle guy, and they cut Adoree Jackson, who had his injury, his fifth-year option was this year, $10 million. It's not that bad for a corner. He was injured for most of last year, only played 3 games. The year before that, he only played he played, I think, 11 games. But still pretty shocking. The other 3 years he played, he's been really good for them. He's developed really well. This guy, you developed a very athletic corner, guy who's played in the slot, can play outside, can play man. I'm actually really shocked that they did this. So, caught him $10 million, fifth-year option. If they had kept him past tomorrow, his fifth-year option would have been fully guaranteed. He's healthy enough because the fifth-year option under the old CBA, which is what his fifth-year option was still under, was guaranteed for injury only. So there's going to be a team that checks him out. They did sign Janoris Jenkins, he was just released from the Saints, previously on the Giants and the Rams. I thought that was a little bit of an interesting signing. I don't have the numbers on that deal. I guess they're saving some money, but I don't know. Getting rid of, they might be changing their scheme. It sounds like they are attacking. They went for edge rusher yesterday with Bud Dupree. Now they add Janoris Jenkins, a solid man outside corner. Go along with Fulton. I still think they go for another corner, either in the draft or free agency. But it's a little telling. I'm guessing they save some money, but he's over 30 years old. He's a bigger corner. So, maybe they feel like this can work for them. They maybe feel like he fits the scheme better. They cut Butler, they cut Adoree Jackson. The Dennis Kelly one's a real shocker. Losing your right tackle after trading away your first-round pick at right tackle last year, this is starting to sound kind of bonkers, banana crazy. Maybe they have somebody they're going to go ahead and sign. Maybe Bobby Massey of the Chicago Bears. Again, he's out there right now. There are a couple of other potential cheap options, but still, I'm a little shocked at the maneuver. Texans continue to do their cheaper, fun free agency maneuvers. We're going to go cheap. We're going to go to the thrift store and just go shopping. And they signed Terence Mitchell, formerly of the Browns and the Chiefs. He's been very good for the Browns as a depth guy. He played I think the whole season last year as outside corner. He was the one guy who played, I think he played 1,000 snaps last year. He was the depth corner and he played so much. And now he's getting a deal similar to what he was getting paid previously on the Browns. So 2 year, I think it's 2 year, $7 million deal. So $3.5 million. I think that was a little pricey. I think the Browns did maybe think about bringing him back, but more as a depth guy who can maybe rotate in. That's a lot of money in this economy for some teams. Probably not a lot of money for the Texans, and they probably needed to fix corner at some point anyway. So I think that was a smart move by the Texans. He's been a very solid corner. You're not going to be able to play a lot of man coverage with him, but it sounds like they have an idea where they want to go on defense. And again, he's a depth guy, maybe help bring along some rookies, if you will. They signed Tyrod Taylor to a 1-year deal, incentive laden, mostly if he plays and gets the things like that. It's starting to show they're putting in contingency plans. Pep Hamilton's over in Texas with the Texans. He previously was with the Chargers, which Tyrod was there as well. So along with Pep Hamilton came Tyrod Taylor. Derek Rivers signed a $1.2 million deal to come over and hang out with the Texans as well. He's very familiar with Nick Caserio from their time up in with the Patriots, as well as Jack Easterby, because Derek Wolfe was drafted by the Patriots, and then it got waived and ended up over on the Rams. Now he's a free agent. Now he's on the Texans. So I think that's an interesting maneuver for them. Again, an edge rusher add to their core of guys to see what they can get out of some cheap contracts, right? They have to go this route. This is the only way they can really build. I think this is a smart move on their end. You don't know what you're going to get in camp. After that, okay, we got to talk about the Raiders. I think the Raiders are having a weird come-to-Jesus moment or a come-to-something moment. They cut Rodney Hudson, the center, right? Apparently they worked out a deal. He wanted out. Dude, if your center wants out, that's a big deal. Top 10 center in the NFL, very good. He's now released. They worked out some deal. He's gone. I don't know if they're taking a cap hit on him or not. Or how much their cap hit is. At the initial reports, it would have been $2 million, but now there's some reports that maybe it's not that much. I just think that's a crazy thing to happen. Is you're cut. The Raiders' starting offensive line outside of Colton Miller is gone. There is no more Gabe Jackson, no more Rodney Hudson. Trent Brown was traded away. Richie Incognito is gone. We're talking about the starting offensive line for like the last 2 to 3 years. In fact, Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hudson, and even before that, Kelechi Osemele, go back to before Gruden came back to the Raiders. Hudson was a big signing around the time Carr was drafted, or a little bit after Carr was drafted. I think his second year in the NFL. So that's a little shocking. Nicholas Morrow's returning to the Raiders. He's been there, one of the better blitzers on their team. Seahawks sign Ahkello Witherspoon to help replace Shaq Griffin. Ahkello Witherspoon gets to stay on the West Coast. Goes to a scheme that's very similar to what Saleh ran down in San Fran. He goes to a scheme that totally fits what he does. Perfect maneuver on both ends. I think this was very smart, very good signing, and a very good match for a player. In fact, I think when Ahkello Witherspoon came out, I thought the Seahawks were going to draft him because he just seemed like a Seahawks-style player. Big, long corner, play outside, play press, and play cover three. And now, and he showed really well at the end of the year. I thought he was a great one-year signing, and this is a guy who I would like for a lot of teams. So, good. Good move on the Seahawks, finally. They also extended Poona Ford, nose tackle. Good move on their end. The Miami Dolphins come onto the board. They signed Malcolm Brown, a running back formerly of the LA Rams. I'm not quite sure what was okay. They wanted a running back. I'm assuming they're going to draft somebody this year. They also signed Jacoby Brissett, formerly of the Colts. Now they have like a depth guy to be on their team to be quarterback. I think that's a smart move. I actually think Jacoby Brissett, they're losing Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now they get a guy to be the backup QB who could be a solid spot starter. Again, if you're having issues, you have injury issues with Tua, keep in mind, Tua did have a couple of injuries when he was in college. So the best part about having a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal is you do have the money to put towards your backup quarterback, have a high-end backup. So I think that was a smart move on their end. Cardinals re-signed Kelvin Beachum to a 2-year deal. I think it was 2 years, $4 million. That was a great deal. Solid tackle prospect to be bringing back. He played really well for them when he's had a spot start. He's very good for a swing tackle move. I think that was a really smart maneuver on their end. Cowboys signed Ty Nsekhe, formerly of the Bills. He's been that's another depth guy who's kind of been out there. Previously went to the Bills, was one of the guys that they kind of rotated in to kind of fix their offensive line issues a couple of years ago when they just started throwing money at the offensive line at little itty bitty, we'll get this guy, we'll get that guy, we'll get this guy. The Lions cut a couple of players, Chase Daniels, Danny Shelton, D-tackle. Danny Shelton's a very good run stuffer. I think he'll probably have at least somewhat of a market. I don't know what team because, Jacksonville's signing all the defensive tackles. So, again, keep in mind they signed a defensive tackle from the Chicago Bears yesterday, and now they signed 2 more. They trade and sign one as well, and Jihad Ward. Jacksonville, I'm more impressed today than I was yesterday with Jacksonville. Because, again, a lot of these moves are very frugal that Jacksonville's doing, outside of, like, a couple of signings. But, again, I'm actually kind of liking what Jacksonville's doing. It sounds like they have a strategy, which is what I didn't see the first day. So, at least I wasn't keyed in on it. Chase Daniels, backup quarterback. I'm sure somebody will sign Chase Daniels because somebody always signs Chase Daniels to ridiculous amounts of money. For a guy who's barely played in the NFL, he's basically just a guy holding a clipboard who hangs out in the QB room, probably tells some good jokes, hangs out there, and is just like, oh, yeah, I think we should run this play this week. That's all he is at this point. They did sign a guy. I'm shocked that the Lions even signed somebody in free agency. They signed Jamal Williams. 2-year deal worth up to $7.5 million. I like Jamal Williams as a running back, and apparently there were other teams in the running for him. I think the Chiefs were one of them. It was 2 playoff contending teams, and he went to the Lions. But you just don't know what the money and the deals were. So 2 years worth up to $7.5 million. That could work out very much in the Lion. I don't know if that could really work out in the Lions' favor too much. He's a very good, solid pass blocker. I think he's kind of a veteran guy to bring in who can help fill out the room because keep in mind they have Kerryon Johnson, who's not always been healthy. I mean, I like Jamal Williams better than I like having Adrian Peterson again, so that always works. Solid in the pass game, solid pass blocker, kind of a thumper, kind of a good shotgun runner. I'm going to miss the days of him and Aaron Jones, the frustrations if you had one of them in fantasy. And now he'll be doing that stuff to DeAndre Swift. But I think there's some usage that they can get out of that. They might run a lot of 2 running back sets is what I'm thinking, especially with 3 running backs who can all be versatile in the pass-catching game. The Bengals, they made a couple of moves, probably because they're losing a couple of guys. They signed Mike Hilton and Chidobe Awuzie. This is telling me they are moving to a more zone-heavy defense because Chidobe Awuzie is definitely more of a zone corner. Mike Hilton, very familiar with zone from his time with the Steelers, is definitely and they're losing William Jackson III. Why are they losing William Jackson III? Well, I'll tell you, folks, because that's the next team we're going to talk about, the Washington football team. And we talked about them losing Ronald Darby. Well, now we know why. They were in the process of working out a deal to sign William Jackson III to a $14 million a year deal to come be their starting outside corner. I think this is going to be great. He's going to line up with Fuller. Their D-line's going to go bananas. They're going to be a tough team to beat. This is going to be a rough fight. If you're going to have to go up against... Now, here's the thing. To use William Jackson III correctly, you got to be running a lot of press man coverage. I don't remember that being a big thing in Ron Rivera's playbook. They don't really run man that often. But if you sign this guy, you've got to be thinking to yourself, maybe we run a little bit more man. They did have Darby last year, and they got some work out of Darby. Maybe they kind of figure out a way to get William Jackson to work in their scheme. But I'm a little more shocked by this signing by Washington. Not because he's not a good player. I think it's a really good player. I think you have to know how you're using him, though. And I don't doubt that they know how to use him, but it's just a little... Yeah, it's just something out there is all I'm saying. The Jets signed Justin Hardy, formerly of the Saints, to a 3-year contract. He's been more of a special teamer, kind of a depth guy. So, they're taking a flyer on a free agent cornerback. Pittsburgh released Vince Williams, probably because they re-signed Spillane. Vikings released Shamar Stephen, probably because they signed Dalvin Tomlinson. And the Chiefs re-signed Taco Charlton to a 1-year contract. And that's it. That's all the stuff I have available as far as my knowledge goes. I could check one real quick thing. Michael Brockers was traded from the Rams to the Lions. Dear God. Just the Rams and the Lions are just trading everybody now. Michael Brockers is a big get for, I think, the Lions. This move clears $6.1 million in cap space for the Rams. This was actually a thing that the Rams were rumored to be doing, is that they were shopping Michael Brockers. Again, this is a guy who last year, I mentioned this before, I think, on the last show, is that some of these deals might not go through. So when we were talking about guys, like who, they do the medical checkup, he was one of those guys last year who, the medical checkup, he didn't end up going to the Ravens because they deemed him not fit. So, probably for a particular injury risk, if you will. So I like this for Detroit. They're now replacing Danny Shelton. I don't know if he's going to cost more, though, than what he's been a solid interior defensive lineman. He was an every week starter in 2020. He's not a heavy, high sack artist, but again, you're talking about a team that does have some familiarity with him because the GM has familiarity with him, right? The GM from the Lions is formerly used to be a part of the LA Rams front office, if you will. Sorry, folks. Mo Alley Cox was tendered a second-round tender. Supposedly J.P. Finley, guy who's very much been involved with covering the Washington football teams, he's reporting that Curtis Samuel is a target for the WFTs. This is something I kind of would have suspected because of their background, with his background with Ron Rivera and Turner. He's familiar with the offense already, so it's a perfect match to bring in. Lee Smith was traded to the Falcons from Buffalo, so it frees up another $2.2 million for Buffalo. A little shocking because, again, the Falcons haven't really made any moves, at least as far as we know right now. This maneuver, again, like I said, $2 million for Buffalo. Falcons don't have a lot of money. They did clear a little bit of space. They restructured Matt Ryan's deal, so that will help out a little bit. I mentioned Kilo Witherspoon. I mentioned the Malcolm Brown trade. I mentioned the other Malcolm Brown. Brandon Wilson was re-signed by the Bengals to a 2-year contract. He's really mostly a kick returner. Eagles are still trying to shop Zach Ertz. Bills signed Mac Hack, formerly of the Miami Dolphins. Saints signed a fullback. You want to hear about fullback news? And Marquise Goodwin's going to be back at the 49ers now because something regarding their something in the trade language last year, I guess, foresaw him not playing for the opt-outs, and maybe that's what led to Goodwin reverting back to the 49ers instead of being on the Eagles. So now he's on the 49ers for right now. They probably release him. He wasn't in their plans last year, so we will, we saw the swap last year. Now he's going to revert back to the 49ers. He'll probably be cut. He'll clear $5 million. That clears out a little bit of cap space for the Eagles, at least. Anything else? Vince Williams, Damian Williams. Damian Williams was released. Darrell Williams was re-signed. This clears $2 million in cap space, at least the Damian Williams thing. This is the Chiefs. Outside of that, JPP has a 2-year contract extension. He wasn't a free agent, but that helps out a little bit of the cap space issues. We already talked about Tyrod Taylor. We talked about Marvin Jones. We talked about Vince Williams. We talked about Adoree Jackson. Sorry, I'm just going over all this. Just making sure if there's anything else. Trent Williams still hasn't hit yet. I'm still kind of wondering what's going on with him. Why hasn't anything gone on with that man? And I'm still shocked about the Rodney Hudson release. David Andrews, the center for the Patriots, is rumored now to be testing out the market. Apparently he was working on a deal to try to stay with the Patriots. Outside of that, that's all we had for today. We will be back tomorrow, talk about the completion of all these deals being official, any of the new signings or rumored signings and agreed to terms. Exciting. Super exciting. Anyway, you can follow the podcast at DraftVice on Twitter, at DraftVice_football on Instagram. You can follow me at BROJO. Death is in the end of life. Punch like a delicious drink you drink in the summer. You can follow, and subscribe. And tweet it out. Share it with your mama. Share it with your uncle. Share it with your cousin. And have a good day.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous about the past and about the future.